That's America I knew. One person in the household working. The other one take care of the family. If both parents worked, you could live an upper middle class life. No matter what job you had. You've devoted your life to it, for God's sake, 40 hours a week. Sun up to sundown sometimes of the year. So what is radical about saying, hey, give the workers every single year without fail? So it didn't seem so outlandish, right? So in 1 year, if your cost of living went up X, then you give a cost of living adjustment proportional to it, X, to these workers. There's nothing radical. They're just trying to stay even Steven. And if the employer say, hey, I don't want to pay those workers more, what the hell's going on here? By law, you're going to force me to pay these workers more? Get to the bottom of it. That's where the rubber would meet the road. That's where there'd be action. Okay, that's when we could have the accountability. That would be where we would have checks and balances. And we could point the finger where it deserved to be pointed. Who's manipulating markets? Why are prices going up? What's going on here? What is this perpetual creating a shortage? Okay, because the only time you're supposed to see price increases is when there's a disruptive in the supply chain. But if demand goes down, prices go down accordingly. Otherwise, supply and demand has been turned on its head, and it becomes anti-capitalism. You get what I'm saying here? I mean, a child can understand this stuff. If you try just a little bit, you'll see where I'm coming from. So how did they do this? How did they get minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to this point? I have no idea what it is now. What is it, $7, $8 an hour now? Federal minimum wage, $9 an hour, $10 an hour? Do you understand how poverty-stricken? You could not pay your rent if you gave your entire paycheck to your landlord in L.A. or San Francisco. Do you understand what I'm saying here? When it used to be in America, you could be a homeowner in L.A. or San Francisco on a minimum wage job. Your wife could stay home and take care of the family. You'd have disposable income. You'd have money to burn, money to save. That's the America I knew as a child. And you tell me I'm an alarmist? Where does this thing end? And now we're going to blame minimum wage workers for cost of living inflation? Do you understand? I mean, it just makes anybody paying an iota of attention want to pull your hair out. If you've got any fiber of righteousness in you, you see how immoral, how unethical, how ungodly this scenario is. And where does the buck stop? I guess it's up to us. It's hardcore, man. I mean, these top politicians, and with all their pseudo-authority to legitimize what the people said don't legitimize, 90+% of the American people against the bailout of '08, and they pushed it through. This is open criminality. This is open theft of the wealth of our nation from the people of our nation. The workers that keep the wheels of society turning. These are imperative to the welfare of society, these people. And you're going to subjugate them. You're going to pick on them to marginalize them when they've got no stature, no status in society, but their jobs are utterly, incontrovertibly imperative to the welfare of society. Working in factories and farms and everything else in between. Do you understand what I'm saying here? And how that would have, if we had to give pay adjustments to the minimum wage workers year after year, how that would have acted as a check and balance. It would have created stability in our economy. Do you understand? It would have kept the worth of our money, our currency, by doing that. Okay, you've got to have rules and regulations that apply to everybody across the board. No scamming, no cheating. It'd be much better to go back to a bartering system, be much more fair. But these people are doing nothing, and they're stealing all our wealth. The workers are the most valuable asset, the most valuable resource any nation can have. Anything and everything can get done with a willing workforce. Without it, nothing gets done. You could sit on a mountain of capital. You don't talk about capitalism. You get into a conversation with anybody. You can hold your own if you listen to a guy like me. You cut to the chase with people. Tell you what, set the table straight. Set right away. Well, say, hey, whose planet is this anyhow? See where they're coming from. So they believe in God or not. Okay? And you'll know right away you're talking to an atheist that just says, I don't value conscience. I don't think I'm going to be accountable. I choose not to believe that. I don't know who created me. It's just a mystery. It's just a fluke, a quirk. that I have a brain and eyeballs and this whole existence. It was all evolution. It's all happenstance. It's just a coincidence. I don't know. I mean, these are like brute beasts, automatons on the highway to hell. I mean, God have mercy on the soul of a soulless man or woman out there. But I mean, what are they going to get? What are they invested in? The things of this world, that's it. They're all in. And they're saying it's all foolishness to be invested in those lofty things like soul and integrity and honor and conscience. All those stupid things, okay? Those foolish things that those idiots that just want an excuse for not being successful as we define it. The secularists, by the worldly definition. We're in a heap of trouble, my friends, and only God can help us out of this mess. Only God can help us. So it's through a lot of prayer and you fighting the good fight. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. I could not live with myself if I didn't do something with my life, and this is what I'm doing. I'm speaking out vociferously. I'm speaking truth to power, and everybody else that'll listen. Help you understand the nuts and bolts, the mathematics. I'm saying, let's do the math. What would federal minimum wage have to be today in order for somebody to buy a house anywhere in America? Anywhere in America. Okay? Anywhere. San Francisco, Manhattan, L.A. What would the federal minimum wage have to be? You do your own research. You do your own math. But I can tell you this, a ballpark figure, well over $80 an hour in San Francisco if you want to be a homeowner and your spouse stay home and take care of the family. And you have money to save, money to burn, money to dispose of. Okay? Well over $80 an hour. And like I pointed out, it could be 50 cents an hour now with a higher buying power than that $1 an hour in the early 60s. Listen, even if you feel like, your contribution to fighting this good fight is marginal and you're just a drop in the bucket. Hey, listen, in the scheme of things, don't worry about it. Leave that to God, okay? He'll decide, okay? You may be a lot more effective than you realize. We're doing stuff that's happening on a subliminal level. There's stuff going on that's ethereal. We don't understand. It's written in Scripture that many have entertained angels unbeknownst to them. We don't know what's going on. But you can really trigger something, and you can really inspire somebody, and you can be a catalyst for thought, inspiration. Okay, you can invoke thought in people. And, help them to realize, hey, it really is important what I do in fighting the good fight. And even if I'm not convinced that it's effective at all, I mean, what do I do? I'm just one little guy out there. And I don't know, I know I've got a very tiny audience. That's fine. Okay, if one thing leads to another and there's a chain and people take the information, they're empowered with it, and they go out and they help others. Do something. I mean, I'm scientific, I'm mathematical, and I am not saying anything that can't be backed up with the facts and all the facts. Okay, but we've got some bad actors running the show, and we have to admit that. And we have to admit we need God's help. And, listen, at least you're on record. If you speak up and you're not a coward, because otherwise that's what we are. We're cowards. Well, what's your reason? Were you just going to hide behind, well, you know what, I mean, it just seems practical that I should follow the establishmentarian way and believe like them. And, we got all these jobs out there that revolve around the problems in society. And all these other people that are doing these jobs, they all think they're so high and mighty because of their great educations. Well, aren't those the people that are running the show? Running the nation into the ground? Aren't these the people in the positions of power, these top politicians? Aren't these some of the most educated ones out there? They've sold us out. They've sold us down the river. And they don't care. They insulate themselves. They pad themselves. They give themselves raises. So they know they're diluting your money. They allow the money printing, these quantitative easing, the bailouts and all this crap. They don't care because they just take more. They say, well, even once you boil it down, I'll still have more of the concentrate. You get how that works? Well, we the people, the average Joe out there, Americans at large, we just keep getting cheated and robbed and stolen from. And it gets harder and harder and harder. That hamster wheel we're on, where we said, well, I could be satisfied if it's just freewheeling. Because that's the thinking, that's the prevailing thinking of young people now. They say, well, it's cheaper to rent than to buy. So they just figure they're going to rent till they're dead. That's it. I mean, they've given up. They've lost hope. They're hopeless. That's where we've already reached. We're at that point now. Hopelessness out there of reaching the American dream of home ownership, living a middle-class life. You understand? So they accept that. But what they're not seeing is that if they don't fight for somebody else, if they're